Chairman, excuse me for the hoarse voice. I'm trying to run through, but it's my great privilege to introduce the new chairman of the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, a tremendous friend to the industry, a leader on broadband, on deployment. He was working on deployment before deployment was cool, and has really set the model for reforms that we think are needed in this age. And so I'm very glad to welcome him to the stage and talk about his priorities as the FCC chairman. Brendan Carr.
Thanks so much. I gotta say, whenever I see this picture up when I first joined the FCC, it makes me feel very, very old. In fact, I had my team recently redo that photo, and I looked at it, I said, I look really old in this new photo. Like, it is an accurate portrayal of what you look like now. So I guess we're gonna hang on to that one for a little bit longer.
You know, I think you've been running fast and furious here. If anything ages you, It is understandable. Well, one, thank you for coming to INCOMPAS. This is a critical time in America's build of our infrastructure. And that what we are now calling the AI infrastructure, which is, for the first time, a real convergence and combination of our energy networks to our data center, to our fiber and broadband networks. And that convergence and connection into the data center powering AI and all that that means. The question is, how can we meet the moment, build as fast as possible? Any advice that you might have to your other counterparts across the new administration at the Commerce Department? How do we use BEAD funds, USF funds, federal funds in a smart, strategic way, getting permitting right? And so I'd love to hear your early priorities and any of your insight. And again, whether it was the small cell reforms, one touch make ready, you have been the deployment king before it was cool. And so thank you for coming today.
Yeah, well, thanks so much. Thanks for having me. I guess it's day, 51, if my count is right, since January 20th. And we have been, to your point, really moving at breakneck speed at the FCC. Before I took over as chair, look, I've had, the honor of sort of sitting in an awful lot of seats at the agency. I first came to the FCC back in 2012, and my thought was I'd stay there for 2 years and I'd go back to a law firm and live my life, 1/6 of an hour at a time. And I, forgot how much I hated, billable hours. So I decided to stay at the FCC, but I've sat in basically every single seat on the dais, from majority to minority to now chair. I've been general counsel, and each seat has its own upsides and downsides. And I sort of appreciate that. But these last 50 days have been amazing. We were just moving, as we indicated, at breakneck speed. We're following, President Trump with respect to that. We're not, going for short putts. We're really swinging for the fences. Again, before I started, I laid out a pretty aggressive agenda. We were going to look at a lot of media issues, which we've done. We were going to look at reining in some of the big tech issues, particularly on the censorship side. We've made some progress there. In fact, industry has really made some reforms there, which I think is commendable. And 3, we have a whole suite of issues that we've been pushing to help spur economic growth. And the agenda I laid out there was going to be spectrum, infrastructure permitting reform, the Space Bureau, continue to build on what Chairwoman Rosenworcel did there and get that bureau moving much more quickly. And then 4 was national security, public safety. And again, if you look at all of those buckets, I think in the first 51 days, we've checked off significant things under all of them. Spectrum in particular, we came out of the box really fast. Very first open meeting that I was chairing, we had 2 spectrum items up. AWS 3, which thankfully Congress authorized us to conduct an auction on. And then C-band, we're taking a look at an NOI and seeing if maybe there's another opportunity to repurpose some of that spectrum. Permitting reform, I want to get to as well. As you noted, we had a really good run during the first Trump administration on accelerating permitting. There's more to do. We focused a lot back then on small cells, and that was sort of the building block of 5G. I think we need to sort of expand out from there. There's a lot we can do, I think, on the environmental side in particular. CEQ has some new guidance that's out there that we need to align with. Again, public safety as well. The very first meetings that we're doing, we've got 2 items up for vote this month on 911 issues, location accuracy, bolstering E911. We've looked at consumer protection issues, from wireless emergency alerts to a fan favorite in my household, loud commercials. If there's 2 things that people stop me on the streets for, it's to complain about robocalls, which again, we're taking action on. But the other one is loud TV commercials. So we started proceeding to look at that as well. So we're really, touching all the bases. We're moving fast. I've got a fantastic team that's been with me for a long time, plus some newbies we've added into it. And we're just having a tremendous amount of fun. In fact, I remember there was a story a couple of weeks ago that said that I had sort of told some confidants that I was having the time of my life, and it was portrayed as a very negative thing in the press. And I guess I can now confirm that it is true. I am having the time of my life at the FCC these last 51 days. So we're having fun.
It's nice to be in charge, isn't it?
There's upsides and downsides to all the positions. I'll say that.
Talk. If you could give advice on, excuse me, on BEAD, what would that advice be? And just to step back a little bit for the INCOMPAS membership, we represent all of the above. We have Kuiper on LEO. We have fixed wireless, emerging new companies and technologies that have really made fixed wireless much more efficient and much more advanced on the speeds, the capacities, and the interference mitigation. And then we have our fiber companies, we have wireless companies. So we have really an all of the above stack, which makes INCOMPAS different than all the other associations. And we realize that there's a role for each of the technologies. Fiber is kind of the base of all, and it comes back to fiber. And so we'd love to hear how you think that we can complement all of the USF and FCC programs, and the administration can use BEAD smartly and wisely and shovels in the ground as quickly as possible to actually build and connect as quickly as possible.
Well, look, I do think the INCOMPAS membership, as you described it, putting aside whether your description is accurate or not, if what you're saying is accurate, it's a really good cross-section of, I think, where we are in the industry right now, which is we have broken down the historic silos that long existed. And we've talked about convergence for so long that it feels, old and dated for us to speak of it. But I think we're really seeing in a practical, tangible way convergence right now. We've got mobile wireless companies, traditionally mobile wireless companies, that are now taking, the largest share of in-home broadband market that used to go almost exclusively to cable. You've got cable companies that are now taking a larger share of mobile wireless customers than ever before. And as you noted, we have a new generation of satellites that are going up, whether it's Starlink and LEO or Kuiper, and I hope to see more Kuiper satellites up there soon. I think that'd be great for competition to get them going. And so I think you're reflecting where we need to go, which is a technology neutral approach. Obviously, we need heavy, deep fiber builds in the country. With respect to BEAD in particular, I mean, look, throughout the course of 2024, I was really reluctant to speak out publicly on BEAD and make my voice known on that. But my criticisms were very clear, which is one, I think the statute that Congress passed said that we should proceed in a technology neutral way. In my own view is that NTIA put just way too heavy of a thumb on the scale for fiber. I think, the lion's share of connections in the country that we're trying to support should be fiber, so no question about that. But if you're saying that only fiber is good enough, the other way to think about it is you're saying that communities should just sit waiting on the wrong side of the digital divide longer than necessary because they can bridge that divide faster with other technologies, whether it's LEO or fixed wireless. So we need a balanced approach. So I would, frankly, this is all in the hands of Secretary Lutnick at this point, and I think he's hitting it out of the park. He's got, a great relationship with President Trump. He's carrying out Trump's agenda. So it's gonna be up to him to decide. But my own part that I said in the past was I think we got to get rid of a lot of things that I thought were distractions. I thought there were some DEI requirements in there that we could get rid of. There were other sort of extraneous political goals, in my view, that were in there that we need to get rid of and reset a little bit more towards tech neutral, because the reality is the heavy fiber bias was going to result in us running out of money. You had, I think, over 10 states that were raising their hand and saying they were going to run out of BEAD dollars before getting the job done if they went all fiber. I think Louisiana is maybe the exception. They're out of the gate early, and they had enough allocation to sort of go with a lot of fiber. But I think they also put some other technologies in there as well. And I think just a more balanced approach is the key. We can both get the job done and perhaps save money, but we'll see.
And as we look at what Louisiana is doing, and that they're ready to really build now and put shovels in the ground. Anything that we can do to kind of, and I believe that President Trump, the new administration, they're wanting to build as fast as possible. Anything that as the new NTI administrator, Ariel Roth, comes in, and anything the secretary can do to speed the awards without all the other extraneous requirements so that we can actually just build broadband as fast as possible?
Well, first, I think Ariel is going to be phenomenal over at NTIA. I think she's going to be a great administrator, assuming Senate confirms, which I'm very confident they will. Very much look forward to having her over there, having her as a partner. I think she's going to be great on these issues. One of the most important things we have to do in terms of unleashing private sector builds is going to be permitting reform. We talked about this. We made a lot of progress, or at least some progress, during the last Trump administration. I don't think we made as much progress as I would have liked the last 4 years, but I think we can get back to that. And that's something that I'm sort of really interested in doing, is looking again at permitting reform. Maybe it requires us taking another look at updating our approach to historic preservation, to environmental concerns, so we can get going. And then frankly, a lot of it is federal lands too. We're sort of at the point in infrastructure builds, particularly when you go further west. There's a higher and higher percentage of federal lands. Congress has actually passed a lot of laws to try to accelerate and streamline builds on federal lands, but it still just takes too long. And I think part of that is, the folks that work at forestry and other agencies with control over federal land, they've got their own priorities that they're working on, and this isn't necessarily it. But I'd love to find a way to make some more progress on that. So I think permitting reform is going to be key, but then also getting more spectrum out there is going to really help. We frankly have fallen pretty far behind China at this point when it comes to the availability of that sort of prime mid-band spectrum. I know, President Trump is prioritizing U.S. leadership in wireless. He did it once before. If you go back, my own history, you can disagree if you want, but it's how I'm going to tell it. In 2016 and 2017, we were in a very similar position where we had flatlined a little bit with respect to spectrum. We had fallen behind China and other countries, and President Trump came in and prioritized U.S. leadership in 5G. We at the FCC cleared a lot of spectrum, 6 gigahertz of licensed spectrum alone. We moved forward, obviously, with the initial C-band. And so I think we need to get back to that, and I'm confident that we can, run basically the same playbook we had before and get more spectrum. So permitting reform, more spectrum, that's going to be really key.
As I listen to you and I think back over your career and at the FCC, you're kind of I don't want to say you're the senior statesman now in the administration.
A lot of people say statesman is not the way they would describe me, at least when I'm on, X. I think that's, X has its own particular language that you use. And I think I haven't been described as a statesman like X poster, but maybe in conferences like this, I can get a little closer.
Well, I was just thinking, how can we transfer that into other parts of the administration and agencies on this AI infrastructure, using a lot of the models that you successfully implemented on whether it's the small cell, the shot clocks, the time certain, and any of the other things that can be done. This morning and all through the last couple of days, AI has been a huge subject, but what we've been doing at INCOMPAS is we created a center so that we could bring in not only the broadband infrastructure and the digital infrastructure of the data centers, but also the energy companies like X Energy that is doing small modular nuclear reactors, Williams natural gas, renewables, kind of all of the above energy. Is it possible to have kind of a whole of government permitting reform, speed to deploy the critical infrastructure of AI so that we can defeat or win the race as it relates to China and our other rivals?
Well, look, again, I think standing up the sort of the AI work stream within INCOMPAS, I think is really important and forward-looking, because I think that AI is going to be sort of the North Star around which a lot of our country's telecom policies are going to be organized in the coming years. And when you go back to the first Trump administration, 5G was a very hot topic, particularly for consumers, because they understood very viscerally what happened in their life when they went from 3G to 4G. And we talked about sort of having that same type of step change as we went to 5G and beyond. But I think right now, when we talk to consumers about AI, that's something they can sort of really understand in a tangible way, so we can build some policies around it. And frankly, it touches so many different things. We need more spectrum to enable AI. We need more fiber to enable AI. We need to have more data centers and reliable power and energy, which you're working on. And the Trump administration has been clear that U.S. AI technology is going to continue to be the gold standard for the world. Vice President Vance was in Paris not long ago, gave remarks echoing that. We have David Sachs, who's working on a lot of these issues in the White House as well. I just came back from my first trip abroad last week to Barcelona, and that was my focus as well, is extending U.S. leadership in AI. And we're really at a fork in the road here. It's clear the direction that China is going with AI. It is going to be an authoritarian version of AI. It's going to be a censored version of AI. All you have to do is ask DeepSeek what happened in Tiananmen Square, and they'll tell you it was just nice weather one day, or ask DeepSeek what happened to the Uyghurs, and they tell you, nothing. They're really well taken care of. They got a great educational program for them. And so that's the fork in the road, is do we want an AI system to develop, and it will because we're going to lead it. Do we want an AI system to develop that is about free speech, that is free from censorship? And I think particularly coming off of this trip to Europe, I think there's a real question about which way does Europe want to go, because the US is going to lead. It's going to be gold standard. It's going to be free of sort of ideological bias, but we don't have to go it alone. We would love to partner with Europe. We would love for their companies and their people to benefit from the work we're doing on AI, but they need to choose. And I think they need to join with us, because the alternative is a real dystopian future of AI. And I think that just adds fuel to why we have to get all these policies right so that we can continue to win this, this race for sort of the dominant AI system going forward.
As we have this conversation, one part of this is the critical infrastructure that enables AI, powers AI, transports AI and the applications. But the other is the underlying or the overlying applications and language models. And what INCOMPAS has done is taken all of the AI approach from open source. It allows new entrants, little techs, emerging tech, disruptive tech to enter into the market, to compete, and to maximize what our mission is at INCOMPAS, is maximizing competition and innovation. But it also allows for the market to choose proprietary models, or those that may be tailored, targeted, specific for uses, or for our higher risk and security. And so we want the all of the above model. And I think it also addresses your free expression concerns, because an open system allows all voices and all models to come into the debate and discussion. And so I think I just wanted to echo what you said. And then the next on, this is going back to part of your conversation on spectrum. Yeah. Are we going to get authorization? Anything that we can do with our friends between the defense community and the wireless and broadband infrastructure community to get the very critical input of more spectrum into your pipeline, and just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. Look, Chairman Cruz has been doing a phenomenal job. His team has been doing a phenomenal job. He's very confident that we are going to get the FCC's auction authority back, and we have to. And if they pass, a bill that creates a healthy pipeline of spectrum, the FCC is going to implement the law passed by Congress. And I think it's a false choice to say, we're going to have spectrum or national security. Obviously, it's both. In fact, U.S. leadership in wireless is part and parcel of our geopolitical leadership, of our national security interest. Again, China is sort of running away with it right now in terms of the amount of mid-band spectrum, key mid-band spectrum, available for full power 5G. If we don't sort of counteract that, we're in a battle with China where we're on sort of the low ground and they have the high ground, technologically speaking. And that's not a good thing. And so we do have to get back to freeing up spectrum, making sure that we have a sufficient amount to power these AI technologies. I'm confident that, Senator Cruz is going to get it done, and we're going to do it in a way that, serves our commercial interests, that actually bolsters our national security. But ultimately, as an administrative agency, we'll follow Congress's lead, but I think they're going to get it done.
So a different, distinct conversation. As we see the nation building the fiber and 5G and LEO systems, we're also seeing a new convergence between wireless and fiber. Our national carriers, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, all either building fiber or buying fiber. T-Mobile buying one of our fiber companies, MetroNet. And as that convergence occurs, it really brings new competition, changes market structures across, what used to be last mile cable or telco, now converging into competitive fiber and wireless all around the country. I don't know if you want to just talk in a broad sense, not a specific sense, about mergers and acquisitions and how you see that as our nation builds out, and in the process, new partnerships, new alliances, new mergers and acquisitions occur in this new world of AI, but also of the infrastructure powering it.
I think historically, if you look at the FCC's approach to mergers and transactions, they took a sort of very narrow view of the relevant market, right? Wireline competed with wireline, wireless competed with wireless, satellite with satellite. And I do think, as we've indicated now more than ever before, there is a, converged market for connectivity. And so I think that is going to be something that potentially plays into the FCC's review of transactions. But at the end of the day, we also have to find that all transactions are in the public interest. And I put forward some ideas that I have on that front. One is when I came into the FCC in, I think, January 20th or 21, one of the things I said is that we were going to end the FCC's promotion of DEI. I think there's a lot of corporations out there that have been promoting a very invidious form of DEI discrimination, and people go through their transactions. I think part of the FCC's public interest review is to make sure they don't have discriminatory policies in place. I think I've made that view clear. If there's any company out there that's not sure if they should be ending sort of invidious forms of DEI discrimination, they can raise their hand, and we'll send them a letter to remind them of our view on that. But I also we have to look at the workforce challenges. If we're going to continue to build, we have to have the skilled labor in place to do that. I spent a lot of time in this job with tower climbers and fiber splicers, and they're sort of the real heroes behind this infrastructure. Most people think that when they turn their phone on, if they even think about it, in this room people think about it because they provide the infrastructure. But outside of this room, if they think about it, they think maybe it's magic or pixie dust. And so one of the things that I want to look at is to make sure that we're looking out for America's tower climbers and other communications workers as we go through these mergers. I think if you look, for instance, at FTC Chairman Ferguson, he announced that he has a proceeding on having the backs of America's workers. I think you could see some of those themes working their way into FCC review as well.
And last but certainly not least in importance, cybersecurity. Later today, we'll have a conversation between Milo Medine, who is over here, and Richard Hartnett, who is the leader of national security, cybersecurity at the Portman Center at the University of Cincinnati. And they'll be talking about Salt Typhoon and what it means and the lessons in cybersecurity going ahead in this era that we face. Any thoughts on cybersecurity and the role of the FCC in protecting our networks, being able to help our companies proactively and preemptively protect the critical infrastructure from the attacks, the bad actors, and the bad things that could happen?
Well, Salt Typhoon obviously got a lot of headlines. It was one of the most, massive cyber attacks, at least as publicly reported in the country's history. It's a type of sort of exposure that we never should have gone through as a country. And, here is an area where the FCC is going to play its part. In the main, the main driver of cybersecurity in this country is going to be, DHS, and the FCC is sort of at their table and at the table with cyber experts, making sure that one, as we identify gaps, they are very quickly closed up and that remedial action is taken immediately as opposed to on a 9-month or 12-month rulemaking cycle alone. We have very good relationships with the folks that are at NSC, and we're working through it in support of making sure that we not only address Salt Typhoon, but ensure that our networks and technology and devices are hardened going forward. In fact, we'll have more announcements later this week on some of the steps we're taking at the FCC on national security to sort of bring all of the bureaus and offices together to promote our interests, including against cyber attacks. You have to stay tuned on that one.
Well, I'm very grateful that you took time out of your fast and furious and busy schedule to come and talk to our membership. We will be coming in to see you, I'm sure. As you talked about in your opening, the technology transitions, making sure that 911 is preserved and protected as we go from copper and analog to the new networks and IP and all of those transitions that you'll be overseeing. The deployment agenda that you've been a champion of will continue to come see. And then everything that we can do to support greater amount of spectrum into the marketplace. Yeah. And the security and the trust, of all of our communities and customers that we serve. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave the INCOMPAS members with as we go forth and try to do good?
Yeah. No, thank you so much for having me. Look, door is always open. We want to hear your ideas. To your point, we want to make sure that everybody has the right incentives to build, to invest. At the end of the day, capital doesn't have to be invested. Risks don't have to be taken. And we want to make sure that we create the incentive structure so that the good risks that you take do in fact pay off, and look forward to working with you over the next weeks, months. I'm not really thinking in years at this point. It's more days and hours, but we're going to keep moving pretty quick.
Well, thank you. And thank you for your leadership and your service. And we look forward to working with you.